Darkcast Network. The light shines brightest on our indie podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's Kona here. All right, so this is what's going on. We had a bit of an unexpected break again, and it's kind of related to our last one. So if you're a regular listener, you've heard about my shingles saga, and that was preceded by my poison ivy saga. And basically, all of that happened. We went on vacation. We got an episode out while we were gone. But then we came back and immediately came down with COVID. And, I thought, hey, my immune system has been in shambles since the end of April. Maybe I should look into that. COVID hit Ethan and I kind of hard, and we could not talk. So there's not going to be an episode, and I was just in no space to get something up. Right now, I am trying to take a bit of a break and try to, reduce some of the stress in my life in hopes that things like this don't keep on happening. But I am writing and working behind the scenes. So this is what we're going to do. This week, we have the lovely Syrai bringing us 2 stories of missing people. These are the cases of the Springfield 3 and DeOrr Kunz Jr. These are both unsolved cases that recently had anniversaries, so we thought that it would be a great time to bring these back up to the forefront a little bit. Also coming up on July 10th and 11th, we do have 2 episodes from our Darkcast family, and we are featured in one of them. I don't know which one they put our story in, but it is called Cruel Summer. And this is when several of the podcasts got together from the network and told different true crime and paranormal stories that take place during the summer. So we are featured in that, and we will be releasing those episodes on our feed on July 10th and 11th. What I find completely hilarious, and I had no idea until I was putting this episode together, is that Syrai actually started out her episode with a very similar apology for being gone. It is tough out here, y'all. It's difficult. But we really, really appreciate you sticking with us. So thank you again for all of your support as always. And for now, enjoy this episode of Freaky AF.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Freaky as Fuck podcast. I'm your host, Syrai, and I just wanted to thank you all for your patience while I took some time off to take care of myself. Being an indie podcaster is tough, y'all. This entire operation is being carried out by my lonesome, so there are going to be a few times where I just need to take a step back to take care of myself, and I hope y'all can understand that. And please make sure that you're looking after yourselves too. Times are definitely tough right now, and so much shit is going on in the world. And with that, on top of the struggles and stressors of everyday life, it's important to look after your mental health, all right? It's 100% okay not to be okay. And if you need to take a day or two to get all your eggs in a basket, please do so. Don't overwork yourself. Don't stress yourself out too much. Everything will be just as you left it when you get back, I promise. So for today's episode, I wanted to discuss 2 unsolved missing persons cases that have just recently had their anniversaries. One of those being the case of the Springfield 3, the disappearance of Suzanne Streeter, Stacy McCall, and Sherrill Levitt. This is a case that shook the once quiet, sleepy town of Springfield, Missouri to its core. June 6th, 1992. Childhood friends 19-year-old Suzanne Streeter, also known as Suzie, and 18-year-old Stacy McCall graduated from Kickapoo High School in Springfield. In celebration of their newfound freedom, the 2 spent the evening attending several graduation parties. Suzie and Stacy show up to the first party in Battlefield, Missouri on Coach Drive at around 8:30 p.m. Meanwhile, at Suzie's home, her mother, Sherrill Levitt, is spending her night refurnishing an armoire. Sherrill would receive a call from a friend at approximately 9:30 p.m. that night, and they talk on the phone until around 11:15 p.m. At 10:30, Stacy would make a phone call to her mother, Janice McCall, to inform her that the two girls had abandoned their plans to drive to Branson that night, as they were planning to attend a water park there the following day with a group of friends. Instead, Suzie and Stacy decided that they'd stay the night at a friend's house and would make the 40 to 45-minute drive to Branson the next morning. When they'd arrived at this friend's house, however, the girls decided last minute that they were instead going to be staying the night at another friend's house, Janelle Kirby, who was to be accompanying the girls to Branson the next day. When they arrived at Janelle's, Suzie and Stacy found the home to be a bit crowded, as Janelle had family coming in from out of town to see her walk the stage at graduation, so all of the guest bedrooms were already occupied. Their sleeping arrangements would have been that they'd have to sleep on the floor in the living room, and it's at this point that Suzie and Stacy decided that they'd probably be much more comfortable sleeping on Suzie's brand new waterbed that she'd received as a graduation present. So once again, their plans change, and at around 2 a.m., Suzie tells Stacy to follow her to her home at 1717 East Delmar St. They told Janelle that they'd call her in the morning. At 7:30 a.m. on June 7th, the next morning, Janelle never received a call from the girls. She tries to reach them at Suzie and Sherrill's home, but all of her calls go unanswered. After not being able to get in touch with anyone all morning, Janelle and her boyfriend Mike decided to pay the home a visit at around 12:30 p.m. When they get there, they notice that all three cars are sitting in the driveway. They walked up to the front door of the home and noticed that the glass porch light shade had shattered. They checked the front door, and it was unlocked, which apparently wasn't an uncommon occurrence, as Springfield was considered to be a safe, quiet town during this time, so the couple didn't really think anything of it. They entered the home to find what seemed to be a pretty normal scene, other than the fact that the TV set was left on, which prompted them to think that maybe the women had gone out for a quick stroll or something of the sorts. While Janelle and Mike were inside the home, the phone rang. Janelle answered the phone, thinking it could have been Sherrill, Suzie, or Stacy, but on the other end was a male, and he was making some very lewd comments. Thinking it must have been some kind of gross prank call, Janelle quickly hung up. Not long after, the phone rang again, but this time, Janelle let it go to voicemail. Not knowing what else to do, the couple left the home after sweeping up the shards of glass that was left on the front porch. By this time, Janice McCall hadn't heard from her daughter since the previous night, which worried her a little bit because Stacy was always very good about checking in and letting her parents know where she was. She also found it alarming that neither Sherrill or Suzie was answering their phone. She calls the friend's house where Suzie and Stacy were supposed to have stayed the night, and they inform her that the girls actually went to Janelle's instead. Not having a way to contact Janelle, Janice was forced to just wait it out until she heard back from either Stacy, Suzie, or Sherrill. At around 5:30 p.m., Janice receives a call from a friend who notifies her that no one has neither seen or spoken to the three women all day. And at 9 p.m., Janice decides to go to Sherrill and Suzie's home with her husband. When they arrive at the house on Delmar St, she sees the three cars in the driveway. She walks into the home, which was still unlocked, and notices the woman's belongings lined up on the stairs. Janice also notices that the family's Yorkshire Terrier, Cinnamon, seemed to be a bit agitated than normal. She walks into Suzie's bedroom where she finds Stacy's neatly folded clothes and her jewelry. The only thing that she couldn't account for of her daughter's was the shirt that she was wearing on the night of graduation and her underwear. She also noticed that Suzie's bed seemed to have been slept in. Upon closer examination of the woman's belongings, Janice noticed that Stacy's migraine medication had been left behind, as well as Sherrill's and Suzie's cigarettes, which raised some alarms as she knew Sherrill and Suzie to be avid smokers. And it's at this point that Janice decides to notify someone of the woman's disappearance. By the time that responding officers arrived to investigate the missing women, between 10 to 20 people had already gone through the home and possibly inadvertently destroyed major key evidence. Investigators took note of the 3 cars still in the driveway, which were all locked, and they were able to find the keys to their vehicles inside of the home. They found Sherrill's bed to have also been disturbed and noticed an overturned book as well as her glasses in her bedroom, suggesting that she had been interrupted while reading. Officers also noticed damp washcloths with makeup on them in the laundry hamper, suggesting that the women were getting ready for bed moments before they vanished, which would also explain why Stacy's nightshirt and underwear were missing. These must have been the clothes that she was planning on wearing to bed. Janelle did notify the police of the strange phone call from earlier that day and also noted of the second call that went to voicemail. Janice was able to listen to the voice message that was left on the answering machine, and it was just as lewd and filled with sexual innuendos as the phone call that Janice had received. But nothing would ever come of this information. It's to my understanding that the voice message somehow later gets accidentally erased. Police were unable to uncover any new information during their walkthrough of the home, and that Sunday, officers locked it up and left a note on the front door for Sherrill to call the police department to cancel the missing persons report. But that call would never be made. The case will be filed as a missing persons with foul play suspected, and the FBI is called to assist with the case on June 9th. Within days of Suzie, Stacy, and Sherrill's disappearance, more than 20,000 missing person posters were put up all around Springfield. The case gained nationwide attention when 48 Hours did a feature episode on it just days after their disappearance and would later be profiled on an episode of America's Most Wanted, as well as Maury Povich and Oprah. Community-wide searches were done. Divers inspected Lake Springfield and a stretch of the James River, and the entire community worked tirelessly to find the 3 missing women. Police looked into every tip and theory that they received, but no concrete evidence would ever come to light. Numbers of theories have been discussed as to what happened to Suzie, Stacy, and Sherrill that night, but I have chosen not to discuss them in this episode today. Instead, I'd like to direct you to an amazing podcast series that is dedicated solely to this case. Its creator, Anne Roderick Jones, actually grew up in Springfield during this time and was just 12 years old when the women vanished. I got a lot of my information from her podcast, and she does an amazing job at discussing the theories and possible suspects, and she even includes interviews with some of those involved with the case. The series is called The Springfield 3, A Small Town Disappearance, and you can listen to it on whatever podcast listening platform you're listening to this episode on. I'll also have a link included in the show notes. The 30th anniversary of this case was this past July 7th. Stacy McCall was 18 years old when she went missing. She would be 48 years old today. She is a Caucasian female with dark blonde hair, blue eyes, and freckles on her face. She has an off-center cleft in her chin and has birthmarks on her chin, near her lip, and on her right arm. Both of her ears are pierced. Suzanne Streeter was 19 years old when she went missing. She would be 49 years old today. She is a Caucasian female with bleach blonde hair, brown eyes, and has a small tumor on the left corner of her mouth, which gives the appearance that she has something inside her mouth. She also has a scar on her upper right forearm. She's described as having large teeth with no previous dental work, and both of her ears are pierced, her left being pierced twice, and has a hole in the upper portion of her ear. She also goes by the name Suzie. Sherrill Levitt, maiden name Williams, was 47 years old when she went missing. She would be 78 years old today. She is a Caucasian female with bleach blonde hair, brown eyes, and freckles on her neck and upper chest. Both of her ears are pierced. If you have any information regarding these 3 women's whereabouts or disappearance, please contact the Springfield, Missouri Police Department or Springfield Crimestoppers. This next disappearance is that of 2-year-old DeOrr Kunz Jr. On July 9th, 2015, Jessica Mitchell and her fiancé, Vernal DeOrr Kunz, decided to take their 2-year-old son, DeOrr Kunz Jr., on a visit to Timber Creek Campground in Idaho. Their site was close to the Stone Reservoir, and the family was planning on doing some fishing while out there. The family was accompanied by Jessica's grandfather, Robert Walton, and a friend of his, Isaac Reinwand. The family would leave for Timber Creek no later than 7:10 that evening and would arrive at the campsite at around 9:30. Upon arrival to the campground, Jessica and Vernal set up chairs and started a fire in the fire pit while Walton relaxed inside of the camper that they had brought. They'd spend the rest of the night sitting around the fire. The next morning, breakfast was made, and the couple continued to set up anything that they were unable to the night prior. Jessica and Vernal would leave the campsite for town to get gas at around 10:30-11 a.m. They'd arrive back at camp shortly after 1 p.m. Isaac had set off on his own to do some fishing. At around 2 p.m., Jessica and Vernal decided to go off to inspect the surrounding area of their campsite. Jessica claims that she announced to her grandfather that they were going to have a look around and that they were leaving baby DeOrr behind since it was nearing his nap time. However, Walton has maintained that he never heard Jessica, and he was unaware that he was supposed to be watching over him. As Jessica and Vernal were walking off towards the stream, baby DeOrr supposedly went running after them. However, when Jessica asked if he'd rather go fishing with them or stay with Grandpa, baby DeOrr decided to stay and went running back towards Robert. Later on, Robert would say that he last saw baby DeOrr playing near the creek. The couple was gone for approximately 30 minutes, and when they arrived back at the campsite, baby DeOrr was nowhere to be found. The party searched the campsite and the surrounding area for 20 minutes before Vernal decided that he was going to take his truck down the road to see if he could find any sign of DeOrr. After not finding anything, he returned to the campsite where he helped search for another 10 to 15 minutes before getting back in his truck and making a second trip down the road. Jessica makes the call to 911 at 2:36 p.m.
What's the address of your emergency?
I'm actually camping in Ledor, just outside of Ledor.
Uh-huh.
My 2-year-old son, we can't find him.
How long has he been missing?
About an hour.
An hour?
Yeah.
Are you by water?
Yes.
Do you know which campground you're in?
It's Stone Reservoir, Timber Creek.
Stone Reservoir?
Yeah, or Timber Creek.
Hold on. We need quick and rescue. Jessica? Jessica?
Yeah.
What's your son's name?
Or
Okay. What is he wearing?
he was wearing cowboy boots, a blue, pajama pants, and a camel jacket. And he's got shaggy blonde hair.
Is your husband calling too?
Like, all down where we were camping at, and we can't find him at all.
Okay, we need you to stay within cell service. We've got people going on the way.
Thank you.
Multiple searches of the surrounding area of the campsite have been conducted by foot, horseback, ATV, helicopters, and by drones. Canine units have been brought in to sniff out evidence, and private investigators have conducted their own searches of the area, but no solid evidence of DeOrr's whereabouts have ever been produced. Later on, cadaver dogs have previously hit on 5 different locations, including a site just 3/4 of a mile from the campsite. After several inconsistencies and statements were found in the accounts of both Jessica Mitchell and Vernal DeOrr Kunz Sr., they were officially named suspects in the disappearance of their son in January 2016. Lemhi County Sheriff Lynn Bowerman stated, "I believe his parents are hiding something. There is no doubt in my mind. We gave them every opportunity to explain if it was an accident of some kind, and they haven't." Neither Jessica or Vernal have ever been charged in connection to DeOrr's disappearance. In July 2016, a search was conducted of Jessica and Vernal's Idaho Falls apartment where investigators uncovered the camouflage jacket that DeOrr was reported wearing on the day he disappeared. No explanation has ever been made public as to how the camo jacket ended up back at their apartment. The family later hired their own private investigator, Philip Klein of Klein Investigations and Consulting. However, he was ultimately fired after he later announced that he also suspected Jessica and Vernal in DeOrr's disappearance. The family made several attempts to take Klein to court. However, the lawsuits were ultimately dismissed, with Klein winning every time. The final lawsuit was in October 2019. Isaac Reinwand, the friend of Robert Walton, has never been made a suspect, and his story has remained consistent since the initial report was filed. Robert Walton, Jessica's grandfather and the last person to see DeOrr alive, would unfortunately pass in the summer of 2019 after battling cancer. Jessica Walton and Vernal Kunz would call off their engagement shortly after DeOrr went missing. They've since been remarried and have moved states. In an October 2021 interview that Jessica's mother, Trina Bates-Clegg, did with EastIdahoNews.com, she said,
I want closure so bad for baby DeOrr. If he isn't with us anymore, I would like him properly laid to rest. I would like to know, not necessarily do I want to know what happened, but I just want the closure of it. This little boy didn't do anything to anybody. He was loving. His smile and his laugh brought so much joy to us that I'm like, there's nothing that this little boy could have ever done to deserve anything that happened to him.
The 7-year anniversary of this case was just 2 days ago, on July 10th. DeOrr J. Kunz Jr. was just 2 years old on the day that he went missing on July 10, 2015. He would be 9 years old today. He is a Caucasian male with blonde hair, brown eyes, and a birthmark on the back of his neck. DeOrr was last seen wearing a camouflage print jacket, blue pajama pants, green and black checkered socks, and brown camouflage cowboy boots. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of DeOrr or his disappearance, please contact the Lemhi County Sheriff's Department in Idaho. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to leave a 5-star rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. If you have the means to further support the show, you can do so by donating to our coffee or by buying yourself something nice from the merch store. Links to both places will be in the show notes and can also be found on my website, www.freakyafpodcast.com. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at freakyafpod, or shoot me an email at freakyafpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to come back here next week for some more spooky shit. Bye!